Welcome everyone, and thanks for coming along. It's the first webinar to talk about our new service that we've developed with Andrew Cross, our benchmarking service. It's a brand new venture for us. We think it's something that would be really useful for authorities when they're looking at benchmarking and analysing what's going on in their finances. Webinar today just to sort of talk through at the start about what this will look like, how it will work, and for Andrew to give us a drive through what the Power BI platform looks like that he's developed. The webinar will run for an hour today, from 10 until 11. As we're going through, please feel free to ask questions as we go along. Put your hand up or put something in the chat. I'll keep an eye out, and we'll try and keep it as conversational as possible. And obviously, we're looking for your feedback, we're looking for your questions. So as much of that as possible would be great. And just to let you know, we are recording the session today. Quite a few people have asked us whether a recording would be available, so we will make that available just to let you know. So to start off with, the service itself, it's a benchmarking service, and we're using Power BI to show a range of expenditure and performance data for your authority. And it's bringing together really a range of different data sources. So it's pulling things together so you see lots of that data in the same place, using the same presentation and the same way of analysing that data. So really the point is that it gives you better access to that financial and performance data. Most of it's available already, but it's available in different formats on different platforms. As you know, with different E-codes or R codes or ONS codes, it's difficult to put it together. Whereas what we've tried to do here is put it all together in one place, making it easier to access that data and to analyse it. So as a result, what we hope is that it will give you better insights into your authority, and really, I think ultimately to help inform a narrative for you about your current financial position and how you got there. Really, it's about helping to tell that story to senior leaders with your authority. That's something that Andrew and I have done with a couple of authorities today, used the platform to actually go through with chief exec or director of finance to actually try and tell that story and to understand what's going on. What's also good about it is that I think someone's on there. Can you just mute everybody? Yeah, that's better. Then what it also allows you to do is to update and refine that benchmarking analysis in real time. And again, that's something that Andrew and I have kind of been able to do, which is that as you're going through the benchmarking on the platform, it allows you to respond to questions and change the analysis. Whereas when you're working from spreadsheets, it takes longer to do, it's clunkier. So with this platform, what we found is that, you know, as your chief exec or your director of finance ask that question about, well, what if, can we explore that? It allows you to do that in real time on the platform, rather than having to go back to your desk and rework it. What we also do is use the data to identify and quantify where possible, where you might be able to find savings, where you're out of line with your class average or your specific user group average, and or indeed where you're spending less than that average. So it gives you an indication of where you might be able to find savings. So it's got that practical side to it. So we're using the Power BI platform, and you'll get access to that from the Pixel website. It's not quite up and running yet, but it will be very shortly. And the Power BI platform, if you haven't used it before, allows you to cut, slice and dice the data, and also to drill down to explore that data at its lowest level of granularity. So all the data's there, and you can explore it in that platform. It also allows you to export the charts and export the data so you can use that stuff in your reports. So it's got that practical application as well as being something where you can analyze. We're still developing the service, so feedback from yourselves now and also from users as you get on the platform would be used to improve that service and develop the service. For instance, some of the feedback has been that people want to see a dashboard so they can see like a rapid overview of what's going on, and also adding in new data sources. So, you know, we really want to be as responsive as possible to what you need and what you're looking for. Before we hand over to Andrew, just running through the range of data sources. It's a data model that incorporates multi-year data. The sources we've got at the moment are expenditure, so the RO, RA forms, also council tax, CTB1, CTR returns, business rates, and NDR1, NDR3. It includes our analysis of core spending power, both from 2010 and from 2015 onwards. And also expanding out, it includes dedicated schools grant balances, section 251, the children's social care, ONS mid-year population estimates, and I know Andrew's working to add in more stuff around adult social care and other areas as well. So we hope to have as wide a suite of data sources as possible, and the sources that you need. What we will do going forward will be have a timetable and a schedule of what data is coming out, what releases there'll be, and when we'll be adding them onto the Power BI platform, and also indications of what we'll be expanding out to, what other data sources we'll be putting on over time. We apply a range of different regional comparisons, so England, national, regional class averages, as well as any statistical or regional neighbours that you want us to put in there. So we can also have any user specified groups. So I guess for representative groups like CCN, for instance, we could put that grouping in there and show that straight away if that's what you wanted to see. So it gives you that wider overview, for the class, for the region, whatever, across the whole range of stuff. So, and as I said, what other data would you like us to include in future? We want to make sure this delivers the sorts of things that you need. So, and on that, I will hand over to Andrew. Andrew's going to share his screen. He's got the Power BI platforms up and running. So he's going to take us through it. And as I said, just feel free to come through with questions, put your hand up, or I'll put something in the chat and we'll try and keep it as much as a conversation as possible.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Adrian. Morning all. So in a minute, I'm going to stick on screen and do some demonstrations of the types of reports which we've produced. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of, I'm the head of finance at Bradford Council currently. And so I'm going to use that as an example and walk through how it's sort of helping us understand our sort of financial position. Just for a bit of background, we currently have, we are in what's called exceptional financial support. So we're getting additional support from government. We're a deprived, I think, 13th most deprived authority in the country. And yeah, we've got some very significant challenges, a lot of which result from children's social care increases, which I'm going to show you in due course. So I'm going to walk through Bradford, but we'll also pick out a couple of other authorities as we're going through. Okay. So I'm going to share screen. Okay, so once you've gone onto the Pixel website, you will end up with something that looks not a million miles dissimilar to this. So there's like a landing page for the sort of benchmarking info. And in there, we will have different tiles which will represent the different benchmark returns that everyone submitted. So we'll have things there for RA and RO, for service-related expenditure and other things. Then core spending power comparators, CTB1 and NDR1. So this will cover all the sort of central type areas, things that are cross-cutting across the council, and then we'll have other ones which will be specific to different sorts of areas. So things like children's social care with information derived from the DFE website for section 251, and things like children's social care workforce. And then we've got things like education. So in the near term, we'll be adding things like adult social care, AskFR, and so on. And the intent behind that is that we will have a similar sort of look and feel, as you'll see, to all of the different reports. It's all brought together in one big data model. And because it's categorized by the different sources of information, then you can have confidence about where the information came from. So we know that will be all of the stuff from RA forms, and you will know that it reconciles to the RA information which has been supplied by government. Okay, so in short, you click on one of these and you go on to RA service budgets. So that's the one we're going to look at first. So on screen, what we have is, I'm going to show you the first page, which is showing national RA budgeted. It's like a time series of RA budgets over time. So up to press, up to 24-25, going back to 2015. Now on here, we have the different sort of classes of authority. So we've got Met Councils, but that could be, we can swap that to London boroughs or shire counties and so on. Or we can pick specific authorities. We just type into the search there whatever it is that we want to look at. So we'll look at Bradford in a minute. And then down here, what we have is the different types of RA expenditure types, so education services, children's social care, and so on. And then in the box on the right-hand side, we've got how that is changing over time. So at the moment, we're looking at Met Councils. I've changed that. Now I'm looking at the whole, everything. If I want to look at just one council in particular, so I'm just going to type in to have a look at Bradford. So that's showing me what our RA forms would have said over the past since 2015-16. And then if I want to look at any of the different RS values in particular, so I can say what's going on with adult social care, so we've seen some growth over time. We've had £69 million more budget in that area over that period. That's our RA change, and that's the average of the class over that period. And I can do that on any sort of area which I'm interested in. Now, as I mentioned before, we've had a particular issue with children's social care, and as we in the last couple of years, our budgets for children's social care and our actuals, as we'll see, have gone up very significantly indeed. Okay, so that first page is reasonably interesting, but really the main thing I derive from it is that what I can take is, I know it reconciles to all of the RA data, so I know that the model is whole. I know it's got everything in there. So yeah, that gives me some comfort that I'm looking at everything I need to be looking at. Now from there, we're going to look now at different sort of the main categories of RA expenditure. So we're going to start off with children's social care. So here we're looking across the country. I'm going to limit it to Met Councils for now. So what I'm looking at here are all of the different authorities that are Met Councils that have submitted an RA form. What we're looking at in this top box here is the cost per head of population for 0 to 18. Down the side here, we have the totals from the RA forms associated with children's social care. What we also have, which we've taken from the ONS population data, is our 0 to 18 population. If I divide one by the other, then it gives me the RA cost per head. And it does the same kind of thing for all of the different authorities. And then what we have here is the cost per head rank. So if I say Bradford currently has the highest budgeted cost per head of all Met Councils out of the 33. So I can see on here that we're currently the highest, the lowest is 799, and the average across us all is 1,306. Now, if I know that the average is 1,306, and I know what our RA cost per head is, then I can take one from the other, multiply it by our population, and that will give me an indication. That will say this will be the additional cost or saving if Bradford were at the average of other metropolitan councils. So I can see here that currently we're spending in the region of £63 million a year more than the average of other councils. So that's quite a big number. And yeah, from here I can say, what else can I say? I can say, okay, so we are the we're currently the highest. Down in the box on the right-hand side, I can see here, this is the ranking class. So what we have is in 24-25, we are the most expensive, or we spend the most on children's social care. The year before, we had the 8th highest budget. The year before that, it was the 24th highest. So, you know, I can see that something very significant has changed over that period. And if I want to just tell that story a bit more clearly, I can go back in time to, well, what was it in 2021? So back in that period, we were down here. The year after, it started to, it was still on the low end of the spectrum, below averages. The year after, it had gone up a bit. The year after, it went up very significantly. And then in 24-25, it's gone up very significantly. So I can see there, you know, we've had some very significant changes over that period, and I can see how the cost per head of population has changed. Now, so that information is quite, you know, I'm clearly aware of it, but that helps me and others identify that we are currently spending very much more than perhaps we should be doing. Okay. Then other things on here and on all the other reports are, if I wanted to, I can say, okay, well, I'm looking at Met councils there, but if I wanted to just look at ones which are in our region, so I'm just going to say, all right, let's compare us against Yorkshire and Humber. Okay, so I can click on Yorkshire and Humber there. Now it's all dynamically changed to give us the answers associated with things in Yorkshire. Now there's not quite enough there because I've got some other unitary authorities. I've got some Met councils and unitary authorities. If I take that off, then I'm now looking at all of the councils in the Yorkshire and Humber region that have got children's social care responsibility. Okay, and yeah, interestingly, I can see things like okay, so Bradford is there. Neighbouring Kirklees, which is a geographical neighbour and a statistical neighbour, is budgeted to spend in the region of £800 rather than 1,000, close to £800. So, you know, very close to each other in terms of statistical neighbours and geographical neighbours, but we are spending close to £1,000 difference on children's social care. Times that by our 140,000 population, and we're in the sort of region of 140 odd million pounds worth of additional spend that's going on in Bradford that's not going on in Kirklees. So you know, we need to understand what's going on at Kirklees and try and replicate that as far as possible. Okay, so yeah, that first page.
That's one question has just come up, which is about the per head figures that you use in the different population groups, aren't you? So for children's, you'd be using 0 to 18s rather than the full population.
Correct. That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Adults will be. We'll look at that adults in a minute, but that's 18 plus, and then things like highways and others will all be based on just per head of population. Yep. So yeah, in here, so you know, the amount of space you can stick on a screen is sort of limited. But there are, we do add in some things which are, you know, you can say, I want to look at this more. I can pop it out, and I've got a couple of hidden fields there, which also give me, you know, we mentioned about population numbers, it's there. And on here, I've got the population, the RA change since 2015. So that's been our growth. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's children's social care. But I may want to look a bit further into children's social care, and within the RA forms you have different you can go down to a different level of granularity. So you can say, all right, well, here we have, let's say we want to look at children looked after. I can click on that, and then so spend on children's social care, children looked after, and everything is now dynamically changed to say yeah, to look at that area. could change that to children and family services. So, anyway, I can go to that different level of granularity by clicking on there. Okay, next door to that, we have, so what we were looking at before was children's social care per head. Now the next report, which you'll see is common to all of them, is looking at their cost by service type. So on here, what we have is the different service types within the RA. Then we've got that £247 million, which we were looking at from the prior screen, but it's split down by the different RA categories. On here, when we were looking at the last one, we could see that the average was 1,759 for Bradford, the cost per head. The average of the Met councils was 1,306. And so when I was talking about the £64 million differential, I can see where it is. On the right-hand side, what we have is the time series of the percentage change in the RA value in Bradford compared to the average of other Met councils. So I can see here that we're basically sort of trending along, not completely dissimilar, but then by the time we get to when we get to 23, 24, and 24, 25, that value has shot up significantly. So I can see that and say, okay, well, we've had 184% growth. The average of other councils that are Mets that are not us was 62%. So we've had very, very significantly higher growth than have other areas. And this is ordered by size. So I can say, okay, well, I can see here that the biggest spend is on children looked after, where we are currently the second highest, and that is our spend per head. So if I just want to look at children looked after, I click on there. I can see that we've had very, very significant growth in spend on children looked after over that period. Okay. Right. So that's children's social care. So what we're going to take away from that is that we've identified that we're spending a lot more on children's social care than our others, and also that we've had very significant growth in recent years.
I like this one bit as well, Andrew. That last report you had there with the way that you can kind of drill into each of those categories on the left, the children looked after, and then safeguarding, then family support services. You can see as you go through which of the elements within the service that have had the biggest increases. You can kind of drill down into that, can't you?
Yep, that's it. Yep. Okay. Okay, so that's children's social care. Now we're going to have a quick look at adult social care. So this is exactly the same principle. So you'll notice that it's got the same look and feel. So I'm going to click on to, we're going to look at Met councils again. And where's Bradford on this one? So there we are down there. So in this one, we are at the other end of the spectrum. So our spend on adult social care is low. We are the lowest. We're lower than the average is based on our population of 411 odd thousand of over 18s, and one from the other. That from that times our population says that we would be spending somewhere in the region of £42 million more if we were at the average of others. Then from here, I can see that we have always been at the low end of the spectrum, and from here I can see that we've had some growth. Let's compare that growth. Oh, in fact, yeah. Again, I could, if I wanted to, I could drill down into the different types of adults-related expenditure that exist within the RA form. And then the same, I can look at adult social care and say, this is the different areas. So I can see that our high spend area, which is learning disability support services, is ranks 32 out of 35 Mets, and we're at the low end of the spectrum. And that is, I can see that I'm low, higher in some areas. There we go, and that's our growth. So our growth, although there's been national growth and Met growth, the growth in Bradford has been lower than elsewhere. Okay, so if you take the children's plus 60 odd million and you take the adults minus 40 odd million, education services, I'm not going to dwell on that one because it is funded by a dedicated schools grant. But let's have a look at highways. So highways, where are we? There's Bradford again. So highways, relatively low. Then environment and regulatory services. Also, this is quite an interesting one. So you got so here, what that's doing. If I just take the environment and regulatory services from the RA form, I can see that again, that we are low. Then next door to that, I say, okay, the environment and regulatory services. But what I've done here is I've excluded waste. I've done that because in the RA forms, there's lots of councils, especially Mets, that have got waste disposal authorities. And so what you see in the RA form is places like Bradford will have its waste and its waste disposal, and its recycling, collection, all that kind of thing within the environmental and regulatory services part of the RA. But other councils, many in the northwest, for example, will have waste disposal authorities. So theirs don't. They're paying a waste disposal authority levy, right? So consequently, you're not really comparing like with like. So what I've done here is I've taken out the waste element and said, okay, well, let's just look at those elements which are environmental and regulatory services, excluding waste. How are we getting on? And then the answer was there's Bradford. So yeah, we're at the low end of the spectrum there. And I can look at the waste, including waste disposal authority levies, and how we're getting on there. Okay, we are also low on that end as well, spending in the region of £10 odd million less than the average of other Mets, and have been low throughout. Similarly, cultural related services. Let's have a look at that. So Bradford, 8,600 lower. Again, not much change over recent years. Okay, now and I've got planning and public health and others. So what that tells me is that yes, high in children's services, and we've had very significant growth in children's social care over recent years. But that that additional 60 odd million pounds is then being offset by 40 odd million from adults and 10 odd million from waste and 8 million from highways and all that kind of thing. I want to put those things together. It turns out that we are an average spender of Mets. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of useful to know, because when I look at it and I say, oh, we've got some very significant financial problems. Why are they? Yes, it's to do with children's social care, but it's not the whole story. So there must be something else happening as well. Mm-hmm. So we're going to look at those things in a second.
Okay. Andrew, could we have a look at for the some shire districts, say for the cultural or environmental? Yeah.
Okay, we'll go on then. So let's have we're going to look at I'll look at a county. I'll look at counties first, and then we'll look at a shire district. Okay. So on here, I've still got it set for Yorkshire, I think. It's not something like that. Yeah. So so I'll look at counties. So we'll focus on. I was born in Lincolnshire, so we'll focus on that. Yeah. Right, so Lincolnshire. There we go. Yeah. So that's telling me children's social care spend in Lincolnshire is lower than the average of other other county councils, and it equates to about £10 million. It's been perennially low. Adult social care, Lincolnshire. So low for that too, spending a lot less than others. Highways and transport. Oh, it's high for that. Okay. Well, yeah. So I won't dwell on that. But I think you can see that it's really easy to change. You just select whatever authority you're interested in, and it'll give you the answers. And then we mentioned about a district, so let's have a look at that.
Yeah.
I was born in. I lived in West Lindsey. So
let's go for environmental and regulatory services for the district. Let's see that one. Yeah.
Okay, got it. With waste or without. So I'm going to go on for Shire districts. So look at ones in the region of East England.
Yeah.
Oh, was it northeast?
That'd be east, I think. Yes.
Is it east? I just miss it.
Yeah. And the thing is, for that, you can select any of those on the left, can't you, in the group, and see how they look.
West Lindsey.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 3186.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The question, Andrew, can you save the filters and the groups?
You can. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess if you had a bespoke comparison group, whether that's like a counties group or whether it's more of a local group, you could save the filters and you
could. Yeah. Also, is it it's in one of these. Yeah. So as an example, it's in East of England. Okay. Well, anyway, so West Lindsey's in there. But yeah, by example, you mentioned about can you have some bespoke comparator group?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say for whatever reason, I just wanted to examine only councils beginning with a B. So yes, I can bespoke it to say. Click on those ones, and it's now going to give me a comparator of those ones. So I don't know if they've got any relevance to each other. Well, they only start with a B. But by doing that, then it's given me only those ones which I'm interested in. I selected. So that could be useful for things like, I don't know, a core cities comparator or something along those lines. Okay. Right. Okay. So yeah, that's the RA forms. Now, before I move on, has anyone got any questions on RA forms? Oh, okay. Right, fine. So next one then is RA forms. So the RO forms, this is exactly the same kind of setup, but it's just looking at the revenue outturns instead. So again, I can see on Bradford, the 23-24 RO data came out, I think, in the middle of October time. So we've loaded that up, and we can see there Bradford RO total there, cost per head at the end of last year was that. we're currently the second of all Mets. And again, we've got that sort of 60 odd million pounds worth of more. So same look and feel, but we're talking about outturns rather than budgets.
And in there, Andrew, you've got down the bottom, you've got the full range of services. So, for district councils looking at this, it could pick out, the housing services or culture environment, all the way through any services you've got that obviously that's what's recorded in the data set. So that's you could look and see that in the same way.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Look at East Lindsey. There we go. East Lindsey's on there. Yeah, all the same. It's all in there. It's all derives from the ROs. Sliceable and diceable as you wish. Okay. So so far I've looked at RA and RO, and that was looking at expenditure, and the conclusions that I've drawn so far about Bradford, as mentioned, high in terms of children's social care, low in terms of others. So now we're going to look at the other side. Look at
Quick question for you as well, Andrew. Are we able to use this to compare RO and RA data, which I guess is looking at
Yeah. You stick them next to each other. Yes.
Yeah. So you can see effectively looking at outturns against budget, really, is it, and see what over a period of time what your outturn looks like.
Yep. Okay. So next one, this one, core spending power. So what we have here is the core spending power going back to 2010-11. Now, I think the concept of core spending power and the information which is directly on the government's website goes back to 2015-16. And then I think there's some Pixel and Segoma and others, I think, have done some analysis to take it further back to 2011. So what we're looking at here is the nation's core spending power on local authorities going back to 2010-11. Okay. And down here we have all of the different councils, so we go on and on and on. But we're just gonna filter it by we're gonna have a look at Bradford again. Okay, so on here I can see core spending power was that had a very big reduction and then has increased again. Okay. And from here I can see that we've had 5.8% growth from there to there, and that compares to an average of Met councils of 10.8% and an average overall of 14.9% for all England. Okay, now that's total core spending power in cash terms. If we wanted to look at it in real terms, got the same kind of info there. I'm just going to look at Bradford again. So here I can see that we've had our real terms core spending power back in 2010 would have been 735 million. Now it's 561. So we've had some very significant reductions over that period. As have all councils. The average of all councils is 17.1%. The average of Mets is 20. The average of Bradford is 24 over that period. Okay, so this next one provides a bit of an analysis about what that change in core spending power has been since 2015. Now, this here goes up to 2015, as I mentioned, because that's what it says on the MHCLG website. But we've also done analysis going back to 2010. So, okay, so here I'm going to look at Met councils again, filter it like that. And so I can see since 2015, the core spending power of Wakefield, for example, was 240 million, has now gone up to 361. So it's had growth in its core spending power of 50.7 across that period. And the average of other Mets was 45%. And then here we have the difference if the authority's core spending power had changed by the average of others over that time. So Wakefield's core spending power has gone up. If it had been at the average, it would now have 13.1 million less core spending power. So I can have a look at Bradford. So Bradford's down here. So our core spending power the dark blue line there is the average of other Mets, and the light blue line is Bradford. So what that's telling me is that if our core spending power had increased by the same as others, we would now have £20 million a year more. Let's see how we compare when we're looking against other, not just Bradford, but not just other Mets, but overall. So okay, so that's 16.2 billion. Okay. So again, and then if we wanted to do things like say, okay, well, we'll do it against the class again. So 20.2. So that's the gap for that between those in 24-25. But if I was wanting to add up the gap that's persisted throughout that period since 2015-16, what would that look like? So I'm going to say in 15-16 it wouldn't have been, sorry, in 15-16 it wouldn't have been anything. In 16-17, nothing. Year after 3, year after 0.8. Okay, but then it grows. So I'm gonna add it together. So I'm gonna say, right, what's it been over the period? 3, 3.8, 8.1, 13.9, 21, 49. So the best part, £70 million over that period. Okay. So yeah, that's useful information for me, because I'm saying, well, look, our core spending power is not going up by the same amount as other councils. Is there something in the funding regime which is not advantageous to Bradford? Don't know, but it makes me wonder. Okay, same kind of thing, but we're going to go now back to core spending power to 2010. I'm going to take that back even a bit further. Met councils, and then we've got Scotland, Bradford. So there we go. That's our change in core spending power. So £26 million less than the average of other Mets. So yeah, some other councils have seemingly had even lower increases in their core spending power. Then I'll take that off. What is it when I just look at Bradford overall? So yeah, the differential there is in this financial year, 47.9 million. And if I wanted to work out what the gap was over that period, what the cost of that lower, the difference between those two things are. So I'm going to turn it off. So that's £355 million over that period. Okay, and that's much the same. It's just core spending power, real terms change over the period. That's just taking into account the GDP deflator. Okay, and then on here we've got core spending power per head. So I'll look here at Met councils. Bradford, where are we? Okay, yeah, so our core spending power per head is down there. Okay, and then before I move on, just have a quick see how Lincolnshire is doing. I'm gonna get rid of them and look at Shire counties, and then so Lincolnshire has had a big increase in its core spending power relative to others. The explanation for that, I don't entirely know, but it's the kind of thing which I would dig into to understand why it is that it's had that increase. Now, yeah, I'll just make it clear that these numbers they do reconcile to the core spending power information which is on the government's website, and I'll just show you that. So this is the Excel version of what the government has on the MHCLG website. So there we've got the 64 million 64 billion, sorry, in this year, and all of the different councils, and we've got the growth rates there. So it all, reconciles to that. And going back to 2015-16. Okay, so that is core spending power. Then we have some other things. So the next one I'm going to look at is council tax. So a big part of core spending power relates to council tax. So what is it about council tax? What's going on there? So again, I'm selected by Metz. Similar look and feel for council tax. Where are we? So Bradford is down there. So it has a Band D rate of 1,702. It's the 30th lowest Band D out of all Mets. If our Band D, the Band D average for other Mets is 1,847. If our Band D happened to be the same as the Met average, then we would be getting £21 million a year more. Other things on here, we've got growth in the council tax base since 2013. That's on here, and on here it's got the total amount of council tax raised. So other interesting things on council tax, we have what is the cost of well, let's have a look at Lincolnshire again. So Lincolnshire's council tax, that's at the lower end of the spectrum as well. And if it were at the average of the Shire counties, it would be raising 16 million more. Next, we have council tax support. So what is the cost of council tax support? How's that compare? So this information derives from the ROs. Let's have a look at Bradford. So our cost of council tax support. So where ours is currently 35 million in totality. The cost of council tax support relative to the amount of council tax raised is about 14%. We are the cost of our council tax support, and the percentage of it as a percent of all of the council tax raised is on the low side, and so that would be the additional cost or saving if it were the average of others. Right, so that's council tax. So what I've learned so far is I can tell the story about the expenditure. I can see that the core spending power hasn't benefited Bradford as much as it necessarily has elsewhere. I can see that a good chunk of that is probably down to having a low council tax Band D charge. Now we're going to have a look at retained rates. So this is NNDR retained rates. So what I'm going to do here is unclick that, and what we're doing is looking at retained rates across the country. And what we can see is the different authorities and how much they've been retaining over the period. So we can see here, Leeds, for example, has managed to retain £126 million of retained rates. So let's have a look at Bradford. So I'm going to say.
Actually, Andrew, John's asking a question about practical examples and also about commenters that gives good insights, but it does lead to further questions. And I guess that's kind of inevitable, really, that it doesn't necessarily tell you why something's happened, but it does help you kind of narrow down what's going on and where the source of an issue might be. I mean, I think for me, Jonathan, it was looking at the children's services stuff at Bradford, that you can kind of drill down into the sub-services really to see, what are the things that are expensive relative to others and what are the things that are not. And I think it at least starts to help you tell the story. There's always the problem that you don't know. People always come back and say, well, how does that compare to another authority somewhere else? And why are they doing something different? And that's always difficult. And I think you do need to you may need to do more digging to try and find that out. But at least this analysis helps you narrow down what the problem is, what's going on, and and to define it better. you know, there's always going to be there'll always be more questions to answer. I reckon. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And did you just want to quickly show that there's the school stuff?
Yeah.
Well, and that stuff, and then I'll come back and I'll just finish off in a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll just finish off with retained rates. So retained rates. So you can see in Bradford we've had our retained rates has been on the very low end of the spectrum. It's like £6.23 per head of population, where other Mets like Wakefield and Doncaster are retaining 51 odd pounds. So yeah, indicatively, you know, had the system reset, we would have been that would have got pooled nationally and then redistributed in some means. So that decision not to retain, to continue to allow authorities to retain rates is one which hasn't benefited Bradford, but conversely is one which would have benefited other authorities. And you can also see things like the NNDR growth. So right, last one then. So yeah, on here we have things like what we're looking at now is the dedicated school grant balances. So what we have nationally, we're looking at back in 15-16 we had dedicated school grant balances which were surpluses, and then over time we're now moving into deficits as is well known, and then by the end of 24-25 the projections that the deficit is going to be at that kind of level, so very significant. And then I can say, okay, what does it mean for Bradford? Okay, so we're in surpluses, but you know we've had we're eating into that surplus in 24-25, and then again, what we can see is over time, these are all the different councils. These are the ones which are in deficit. These are the ones which are in surplus. How are we getting on with in Shire counties? Yeah, okay, so Lincolnshire, that's there, so that's still in surplus. But we can have a quick run through time. Say, well, okay, back in 15-16, they were all in surplus. 17-18, a few have moved into deficit. Then a few more have moved into deficit, and a few more have moved into deficit. A few more have. So we've seen, you know, quickly we're getting a picture of, you know, a system which is in significant need of assistance, as we all know. Okay, so conscious of the time, but yeah, there are some other reports in here which look at things like the Children's Social Care Section 251 info. So that enables you to drill down to an even lower level of granularity in terms than the ROs and the RAs. So you can look at things like residential care cost per head of population for children's social care or foster care, and you can get some really interesting insights from that as well. Similarly with children's social care workforce. Okay,
a quick question actually, Andrew, about Will asked about can we see the statistical nearest neighbours? And I know you have got that in there. But I mean, it's that's something that you've got in there, isn't it? I mean, maybe probably run out of time for now, but if you just mentioned about that does work, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
Yeah. And actually, Will, if you want to see that, we can come back to you on that and show you a bit more about that later.
Yep. Okay.
But just to cover what the service will look like, clearly you get access to the Power BI platform. I know Jonathan, Jonathan, you asked about user access as well. I mean, we wouldn't restrict the number of people in an authority that had access to it. So as you said, you'd like to have as many people as possible having access to it, and we wouldn't restrict it. Clearly, there's an issue about the cost of licenses onto the Power BI platform. Many authorities, I think, will have some of those licenses anyway. We can arrange for them if you don't have them. But from our point of view, there's no limit on the number of people that would have access. It's just an issue about what the cost of those licenses would be. So you'd have full access to the Power BI platform. We'll give you a training session about how to use it, and we'd also, and that'll be run by by Andrew and by me. So we would do that with you. It wouldn't be something that we'd done by a third party. And we'd also give you an analysis session as well. So we'd run through the platform with you to give you an indication of what we think is going on. You know, kind of analysing the data, drilling down and working out what we think the issues are that you could look at further or that you'd want to look at in more granularity. And then lastly, we'll also run a series of regular webinars where we'll look at, for instance, if new data is coming out and there's something that's interesting to look at from a national or a regional or a class perspective, we'll do that. And you'll have access to that. Martin, you asked a question about what differentiates us from the other benchmarking tools in that from CIPFA and CFO Insights from GT. I mean, I don't want to say too much about other providers, other than to say, you know, we try and do things in a more collaborative way. So it's more about us understanding from you what you need and what you want us to do and how you want us to update and develop the service in a way that delivers what you need. And also, I think there'll be an issue about price as well. We'll be able to do this a lot more cheaply than say a GT or even CIPFA would do. So we try and provide you with a service that more than matches and exceeds what they could do, but at a lower price point, and to do it in a more collaborative way. In terms of pricing, our working assumption for a full year subscription is £4,000. But as you'll know, but if you've subscribed to any of those other services, you know, CIPFA and particularly GT would be a lot more expensive than that. So we're trying to keep it at a price point that makes sense for you. As you can see, we've done a lot of development on it, but we're still working with it. So for early adopters, we're still offering quite a heavy discount there, down to £2,000 for a subscription for those of you who want to come on board now. Peter's asking about when we're aiming to go live. I think we're pretty close, actually, Peter. I mean, we'll be launching from our website probably within a couple of weeks. But as you can see, the Power BI platforms are already ready to go live. So I think in terms of giving you access to it, I think we're talking within a couple of weeks and at the latest in the new year. So we're pretty close to doing that. If you wanted to subscribe as a group of authorities, you're very welcome to do so, and we can talk to you about what those prices would be. I know one authority, you know, who we already subscribe to our funding advisory service, has been interested in that. So we'd be happy to talk to you about whether you wanted to do something on a group basis. As I said, that includes all the training and the analysis session, the 2 sessions that we talked about. So if you're interested, just contact me, let me know. Contact Andrew as well, and we'll try and get you started. I think as well, you know, if that's the price for an upper tier authority, would also indicate whether you want to do something as a district or a group of districts. Again, just let me know. Jen was asking about the time frame for early adopters. We're fairly flexible about that. If you're in the first group of people in the next few months, I think we'd certainly classify you as an early adopter. Maybe into next financial year, we might be thinking about the full price, but certainly in the next 6 months or so, you'd certainly get classified as an early adopter. So if you're interested, just let me know. We're slightly over our time of 11 o'clock, so I don't want to keep you on here too long. Just to let you know, we have recorded it, so the recording will be available on the website from tomorrow. If you want to know anything else, just drop me a line. So thanks for that, Andrew. That's really, really interesting drive through the Power BI platform. I think it's really powerful. I think it's really interesting, and I've been fascinated to see what it can tell you and how you can analyze that stuff. So thanks for that. And yeah, let me know if you're interested. Thank you very much, everyone.